Hi, everyone. This is the discussion for Trouble in Queenstown, and we have the author here, Delia Pitts, and I'm going to let her say
Wow.
a few words. Uh,
Wow.
I want Jim. Wow. Wow. Fangirling. Fangirling, fanguying, fan readering. And we're so grateful for your time this evening because we know you could be anywhere and be doing anything. And just for Nia and Tori and Jim as well, like I know y'all could be anywhere doing anything. And I'm so glad y'all are part of book club. So I'm gonna let our guest of the hour say a few words before we ask our questions.
Well, first of all, let me just say, as I just said it a minute ago, how honored I was when you chose Trouble in Queenstown as your book selection to read for October. I was so excited and thrilled, really, to have this opportunity to reach out to talk with readers. And it's one of my passions is obviously books, but reading, bookstores, all of that, the book publishing industry, all of that. And so it was really such a thrill to be selected. And I can't wait to get in and hear what you all have to say about the book, about Vandy, my detective, and hear where she's been and where she's going and what you all think about that.
All right. I think a lot of people have a lot of questions, but I think first, like, we want to get some understanding of what went into creating the character of Vandy. Like, what was your inspiration? How did you decide that you wanted to station us in New Jersey and just her background and everything that she had going on in her life? Like, what inspired Vandy?
Okay, well, talk about two different parts of your question, the character and the setting.
Hmm.
What inspired the setting is that I live in a small town in central New Jersey. It's not, and it's situated much like Queenstown is, about 9 miles from Princeton and just north of Robbinsville, and maybe an hour drive or less from the Jersey Shore. So, Queenstown, in many ways, is like the town that I've lived in for the past 24 years now. And one of the things that struck me when we first moved here was my kids went to the high school. They started high school that year that we moved here. And I looked at some data about the town and about the school district, and it said that something like 50 different languages were spoken among the families in our school district. And I thought that is really telling. That says a lot about the diversity of this town because it looks it's a sort of a suburban small town environment, not like millions of other small towns in New Jersey. And I said, but this is a diverse community. This is not what's often presented in books or in mysteries in particular when you have a small town. And so even from that first time, early times moving here, I thought this is an interesting, different setting for a story. I've loved mysteries all my life. All my life. I've always read mysteries, whether they're amateur detectives or police procedurals, I'm not so fond of, but I read some suspense, thrillers, private eye mysteries, whether they come out of the Agatha Christie tradition or out of the Raymond Chandler tradition and Walter Mosley. And all of these kinds of things have influenced me. And I love them. I love reading them. So I wanted to write one of my own. On the character, I I wouldn't say I based it because my Vandy is a much tougher character than my cousin, whose name is Esther Myrick. She's older than me and she's from Chicago, like I am.
Hmm.
She currently is in a nursing home in Chicago and doing pretty well. She, during the 1970s, when we were growing up on the south side of Chicago, Esther and her husband founded a very small security agency. They did things like provide personal security for individuals. They did a lot of job background checking and insurance fraud checking, security for physical locations, not murders, not a lot of not violent crime. That was not what my cousin was getting herself involved in. But she was an inspiration to me because she was running a small business in a neighborhood that was pretty tough. And she was doing it as a woman entrepreneur on the south side of Chicago. And those things stuck with me. And I've always thought, well, take that a little bit further. Maybe it could be a security agency run by Black women who did get involved in murders and other kinds
Mhm.
of violent situations. So she was very much, Esther was very much a personal influence on deciding the gritty, tough, sassy, sexy, thoughtful, big-hearted woman that I wanted to make as the centerpiece of my detective series.
Okay. I love when it's like influence from like real people that we know. So, did you like have you had a chance to like tell her about the role that she has played in this new series that you have
I
created? What was
did
her
tell
response?
her. I did tell her she's interested. She's a writer too, in a way. She's
Okay.
writing. I keep wanting her. I keep asking her to tell me more stories about when she was running her security agency.
Hmm.
But she wants to talk about her own spiritual journey, and that's good too. And so she writes about those kinds of things. But I didn't think I mentioned her name is Myrix, and so this character in the book, the fictional character, is directly named after Esther Myrix, and I just sort of took off that S and kept the name. So it's a family name in my father's side of the family, and so no, she has not read the book, and so I don't know what she would think about
You have to get her to read the book and see what she
it.
thinks
Mm-hmm.
because it's
Mm-hmm.
inspiration, but like you took it a completely different path from her experiences. And
Right.
so even just the way that you like the opening of the book was
Yeah,
very
well, yeah.
I was just like, I think that was part of what I seen when I first went into the bookstore. I said, "Oh, this is a this is an interesting way of starting out a mystery book." It's just like what were your intentions there with that opening line?
Well, with the opening line, I wanted to get your attention.
Yeah.
I wanted to announce from the start that Vandy was her own person. She was her own woman. She was not going to be pushed around. We find that in that first scene, really,
Hmm.
not just the opening line, but the opening scene. We see very directly that she's not going to be pushed around. But we also learn pretty quickly that she's vulnerable, that she has wants and desires. That's the first line. She has wants and desires that are very human, that are very recognizable and understandable. Um, and then the question becomes, how does she go about making, or as we learn very quickly in that first chapter, remaking her life
Hmm.
after a personal catastrophe. And so I wanted to get some of those themes into the very opening scenes, and I also wanted a little bang bang. I mean, I wanted a little boom boom boom, so that you got your interest going.
Yeah. I that opening, I'm telling you, it was just like, oh, okay, like this is gonna be a lot. Like this is gonna this is gonna be some things going on. Like this is a very complex character, and it's also like going against the status quo. Like her entire character arc is like completely different from what people expect of women, especially women in mysteries. So,
Right.
are there any like besides your relative, are there any other like characters, like women characters that you were like, I really want Vandy to embody this person as well. Like I want to like go off of that and like capture the humanity of a woman because like a lot of people like sexism is part of the book, but like just why was that so important for you to do with this specific character?
Mm-hmm. One of the things I think I was working, as I said, I love reading mysteries and I have all my life. One
Hmm.
of the things I think I was taken by was how I could use some of the tropes, some of the conventions and the cliches of detective fiction, particularly American detective fiction coming out of Raymond Chandler, um, and Dashiell Hammett and others, and James M. Cain, all these people who wrote in the noir period. And I wanted to twist some of those.
Hmm.
So I wanted to, the first twist obviously is that the character is a first person character, but is a female.
Hmm.
And it's she is most of the females in those books tend to be the femme fatales. They have agency, they have action, but they are not the center of those stories. And I wanted to flip that story, flip that script, and I wanted to have a woman who was going to be at the center of the action, whose point of view we were embedded in, but
Hmm.
I wanted her to be um, a woman of a certain age. So I very purposefully made her a middle aged. She's in her middle 40s when we meet her. I wanted her to be a mother, and that was another twist that I put onto the conventions. And I didn't want her to be the classic lone wolf.
Yeah.
That's the most common form of the detective story, is a lone wolf who operates on the edges of society, and who, by his very presence, is a challenge to society. I wanted some of that, but I didn't want all of that. So I made her, for instance, as I said, a mother, of course, a mother who is lost. And so one of the ongoing questions for her is, am I still a mother? Am
Hmm.
I a mother? Can I be a mother without a child? And that's sort of an ongoing question that she grapples with as she comes to terms with her grief. Um, I wanted her to not be an alcoholic. That is a frequent trope in detective and crime fiction in general. The sort of broken detective loner who buries his sorrows in a bottle of rot gut, and I wanted to not have that as a motif. I
Yeah.
also wanted to have her, as we quickly learn, not be a gun carrier. She does not use a gun, and I thought it was important to try to make her different in that way as well. That she doesn't pull out a gun to solve every crisis that she finds herself thrown into. Sometimes she may wish she had the gun because she gets into situations where it would have been easier to shoot out of the situation,
Yeah.
but she has to rely on her brain. She's a boxer. And we learn that in the opening scene.
Hmm.
She's a boxer. She's tough. She's physically fit and physically capable of taking care of herself. And I wanted that to be true of her, as it is of most of the detectives that we meet in traditional detective fiction. But I also wanted her to be embedded in a circle of resilience. She's got several good friends, women friends, who look out for her, who are her include her boss, her assistant or secretary, her bartender.
Hmm.
And I thought it was, for me, important and interesting to say, no, I don't want her somebody who's some kind of a cave dweller who only comes out to pick up his gun and drive his fast car and bed some lady and take another drink of his rot gut whiskey. I wanted a person who was a part of society, who was a part of the society of her small town, who knew it but didn't know it as well as she perhaps ought to have noted. And so part of the story is she learns a lot about her small town as she goes through this fraught case.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Like just the and I kind of expected it as being a woman author. Like I was like, there's gonna be a lot of women in here. Like I just had it feeling that
Mm-hmm.
it would because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not the biggest mystery reader, and that's part of our book club is just making sure that we're tackling different genres each month. So I really like when October rolls around, we try to get into those mysteries and those thrillers and just like the suspense
Mm-hmm.
fiction. And so I was really excited to see all of the women within the story and all of the people that she was working with. And it's just like it captures like the compassion that women have for the things that they do or that they are trying to achieve in life. So even though she had the grief, she was dealing with a lot, she still had love surrounding her, even with her father being sick. Like we still were able to like see her as as a total person and as a healing person. And I
Right.
think that's a really good point that you made because like I've read a few other mysteries, but like all of those detectives or like the main character, like they're just very depressed and just like not really trying to be better. They're just doing these things to get by. So I'm so glad that you
Mm-hmm.
put that out.
Mm-hmm.
Nia and Jim and Tori, if y'all ever have any questions, like y'all can jump in.
Please.
It's for all of us to discuss. It doesn't have to just
Yes, I would love to hear from the rest of you as well.
and, and if you're not comfortable, you can always use the chat box.
And you're going to have to probably follow the chat because I can barely see it.
No, it's okay. I just pulled it up. Nia actually has a question. She said, what was
Yes.
the choice for her to have her father's name? This is the second book I've read with that naming dynamic this year.
Oh, interesting. Uh, I wanted a little bit of ambiguity about right from the beginning, and I wanted it to be a point of ambiguity for some of her customers, her clients, that they weren't quite sure whether she was a man or a woman. I thought that was a fun thing that she likes to play with. Um, I wanted it to keep the same name because it emphasized her ties to her father, how
Mhm,
close she was, how close he and what he had wanted from her from that relationship, what he didn't get from that relationship, which was of course a boy. Um, and I wanted her therefore to I wanted that name itself to capture some of the complexity of their relationship, that
mhm,
she was his, as she thought, his only child, and she inherited a lot of his skill set. His She got pushed by him into, or she felt she needed to become a police officer, as he had been all those years. I think she may not have appreciated completely how tough it was for him being the only black police officer on a small town police force. Um, but she was always, as she herself knows, she's self-aware. She knows she was striving always to be the best child for him, and always felt she wasn't quite up to that mark, meeting that mark. And she still grapples with that, even in his decline, and his sort of falling into the shadows of Alzheimer's. She's still grappling with that issue and finding out who he is and what she can be with him and for him.
I think like that was a really good question. And it
Mm-hmm.
makes me think of the fact like you mentioned that like she thought she was an only child. Why was it so important to put that spin in there? Like for your
That
readers, why was that so important?
she felt she was an only child, or that she discovered that spoiler alert, she was not an only child.
Yeah, that she was
Uh,
not an only child. Why was that so important? Like to demonstrate
well,
like just how the races and like these two people that seem so far away, like how they blend in this small community. Why was that so important?
I wanted to underline the connections
Hmm.
in a community, in a small community, the hidden um, connections, things that, and it's hard in this day and age. This is a contemporary story. It's hard to come up with things that people are still willing and want to hide. We
Hmm.
have so much out there on the internet. Our lives are so
Hmm.
out there on
Hmm.
the internet and in the world. It's hard to come up with um, a plot and a plot point and a turn in the plot that's worthy, that people will maybe even kill for, or certainly work hard to hide.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to come up with something that, because of the racial implications and because of just the plain old adultery implications and the power implications, that the second family that her father had
Hmm.
um, was going to be something that he would keep hidden, although her mother hinted at it. And that was sort of to me, a poignant element. Obviously, her mother's dead throughout the story. We don't ever meet her, but we meet her only through Vandy's memories.
Hmm.
And to me, at least, one of the more poignant moments was when she recalls her mother saying, well, love is like sponge cake.
Hmm.
You want to step on it, you want to get into it, but it's squishy and it's unstable and it's sweet, but it's not something you can rely on. And that was sort of a life lesson that her mother shared with her, and Vandy, spends the whole book unpacking what that might mean.
Hmm.
And it means different things to her by the end of the book than it did when she first thought about it, when she thought it had to do with race relations and how you trust people. And as she found out, it meant more than that.
Have you always been into like essentially poetry? Because you did include a bit of it in there with oh, I'm blanking. Um
The Robert Frost
yes.
poem.
Yes. Like
Yes.
was that like have you always been like secretly interested in like poetry like that? Because you braved about mystery, but like I can tell that you have an appreciation for like some of those hidden meanings and just like unpacking like very beautiful and lyrically written phrases
Well,
and
thank you.
passages. So
I
has that
appreciate that.
always been of course, like has that always been like do you like dabble in poetry a little bit on the side, maybe?
I really haven't, but I'm very aware of language and the value and the power of language and poetic language. And I'm not afraid of having my characters as obviously
Mhm.
appreciate language. And in fact, I will tell you the first title for this book was not Trouble in Queenstown. The first title, or the title I had well, I had many titles, but one of the titles was going to be Nothing Gold Can Stay, the
Mhm.
line from
Yeah.
the Robert Frost poem, because I thought that really captured the meaning of loss, the meaning of passage of time, passage of seasons, that the changes in our lives are not ones we can control, or even appreciate maybe until after we look back. I wanted that kind of melancholy that came out of that poem. So that poem was actually one of the starting points for the themes of the book. But the editors said, nah, no, nobody's going to get that. You can have it in the book, but you can't have it as the title.
And
But
I
then
was
since I had a character who was a English professor, it made it easy to put that in. I mean, that was simple. The man was an English professor, so it would be natural that he would be quoting uh, that poem, and so
yeah.
I was happy to work it in.
Yeah, I was gonna ask
I,
about like just your experience. Oh, Jim, were you gonna say something?
Mhm.
I just wanted to just say, hey, first of all, it's blowing me away that you're here. We I had no idea, and I looked, and I was like, really? So, um, and I really enjoyed the diversity of the characters. Like there wasn't even the brothers, Keyshawn and they no two and there was a wide range of characters that it wasn't so they came together to kind of solve this mystery or be involved with this mystery, but it's like every character was so distinct and had their own viewpoints and different perspectives, and I really enjoyed the richness and depth of the characters that were involved, and I thought it was a good mystery. The brother and sister that threw me. I didn't see that coming. So
Good.
yeah.
Well, thank you, though. I
Yeah,
appreciate that. I
yeah.
appreciate you for saying those things. Which was your favorite character? You mentioned the two Sayer brothers, Bobby, the police chief, and Keyshawn, the health attendant. But
Um,
were those your favorite, or
favorite.
were there some others?
I think Maddie was my favorite. I thought that she was, very, very unique, very believable. I liked that she had these things in her life that, like you mentioned, the reasons for not drinking and the reasons for not carrying a gun, and there were all these things that I thought kind of made her a unique character and an interesting one, well rounded. So and definitely believable.
Well,
I
thank you.
really, yeah, I really thought that she was a real person somewhere. So
somewhere.
yeah, enjoyed it in Queenstown. Yes.
Yes, no, I appreciate that. One of my favorite moments was when an early reader said after he finished reading it, this before it was published, he was one of their first readers, and he said after he finished it, he went and dragged out a map, an atlas, and he was looking at the map for New Jersey, looking for Queenstown. And I said, "No,
Yeah.
John, no, this is made up.
Yeah.
This does not
Yeah.
happen."
And for some reason, I initially thought just from the that it was like a Caribbean place at first,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
then when you brought it into mentioned New Jersey, I was, oh, okay, all
mm-hmm,
right, we're here, we're here. So,
mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
thank you so much for coming, and a great book, and Dashani, we appreciate your choice once again.
Well, thank you
She's
for reading
amazing
it.
with the
I
selections.
appreciate
Yeah,
appreciate
amazing
you.
with selections. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm interested in who the in favorite characters that the other readers might have. If uh, there's
Yeah.
as you say, there's a lot of there was. I wondered if there was too much. At some points, I was going, "Whoa, it's just too many characters." But
Nia, Tori, do you have a favorite character?
So, usually, we come even if we didn't finish. So I will be the one to say that I have not quite finished. So I
okay,
don't feel comfortable saying that I have a favorite character as of yet.
okay, that's fair. That's fair.
That's okay.
That's fair.
Tori. Oh,
Putting him on the spot.
I know.
Don't
Um,
want to put him on the
but
spot.
for me, I also love Vandy, but Hector's younger sister. I thought she was
Ingrid,
just
yeah.
so remarkable, like, and she was just like, no, I'm coming with you. I'm gonna do this. And it's just like showing like a younger generation of strength. And a part of me really, because like Vandy like says, oh, she works with me at the office, like she's interning at the office. So I really want to know, will she be appearing in any of the next books by chance? Just because like am I
No,
too much? But like just
no,
because
no.
her
That's a good
character was
question.
just like she was very helpful to Vandy. Like she like her appearance, like her character, like she was just a very strong character to me. And I admired like you're a teenager and you're like, no, I'm gonna prove my brother's innocence. And it's just like that drive, that determination, like seeing it so young in a character, it's just
Hmm.
like that really drew me to her. So I did like her. But just like Jim, yeah, Vandy was very easy to like and want to follow along with and like see it through to the end with. And I know
Hmm.
there's gonna
Hmm.
be a next book. So can you tell us a
You're
little
getting a.
bit about
You're.
it?
I don't know if you can see that. You're getting a. It's
Yes,
backwards.
yes.
Anyway, you're getting a cover reveal right there. It's called
I
Death of
love
an.
that.
It's called Death of an X,
Hmm.
and it's the second one in this series. Like Nia sending it, yay! And yes, Ingrid is definitely in there. She
Hmm.
comes back. I loved her as a character. I
Yeah.
was so fond of her. She just tickled me no end. I just every scene I had with her, she was just popping in my head. I mean, she was
Hmm.
her voice, her style, her language was so different, and I had
Hmm.
fun having it be so different from Vandy,
Hmm.
um, and yet I hope believable as both a young person but a very smart and 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 hard charging young person who, as you said, very young, but well,
Yeah.
she's in a dire situation with her brother being killed like this.
Yeah, when I was reading it, like it was very believable to me. It almost like it was like Jenny Ortega. Like I just kept seeing Jenny Ortega from some reason, the girl who plays Wednesday on the Netflix series.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept seeing
Okay,
her and just like her demeanor, like just because of the roles that she has played. But yeah, I really
I
enjoyed
like that. I like that idea.
I really
I'm
enjoyed
gonna
it.
make you
So,
my. You can be the producer of this
oh
of
no.
this Netflix.
Don't give me any more job titles.
That's your next job. Get this thing made into a movie. Why not? Or
Yeah,
a television show.
get it pushing, yeah. But
Get
no,
it in there.
I
And
really
it's also you know, characters that I liked, but the mayor was really well done too. I really, you know, she was coming at him from each angle, and just her kind of weaving in and out of the story until she really, you know, kind of pops up, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
they had that conversation. But yeah, she was a piece of work, and you know, a formidable villain in the yeah, she was
What
really
did you
well done.
think about the mayor and her sort of rationale for herself? What did you?
Oh, that scene
I
at the end where she's basically like ripping the mask off and she's like, ha ha, I'm a villain. I'm just like, oh yes, you are. You are wicked woman.
yeah, yeah, and I thought she you know, it to some degree it seemed like a reasonable secret to, you know, to hide, especially you know, with the I was at the town hall meeting, and you
Yes.
know, yeah, and so you know, I think she had something to protect, and if Leo could pass, you know, that would go, you know, down with it. And then with, you know, her father, you know, his mental condition, not really remembering that, that secret may have gone with gone by with the death of those two, and her father's. But I thought that was a really another really good, you know, twist, because I certainly didn't see that one coming, as Leo being her, you know, half brother. But
Right. Right.
yeah, yeah, not at
Is that
all, not at
good?
all.
Well, as I said, good. You shouldn't see it right
Right.
from the start. That's
But
good.
I tried, you know, I was trying to
No.
figure out like who did it, and I
Right.
wrote some notes, and I used to read, you know, I'm marking my age, but I used to, for in between more serious, you know, dedicated work, I would read Elmore Leonard books.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and I always thought, you know, that they were, you know, they were just interesting enough, and you know, it was, and but even then, I would make notes of like who I think did it, and like
Mm-hmm.
mark the page that I thought. And so first, I thought it was the someone, one of the pastor at the church. Was that?
Oh,
Yeah. And so I was like, I bet he did it. And I wrote a note, you know, and I was like,
interesting.
no, because it's usually not the obvious or this, that, or the other. But, you know, by the time the mayor came up with her, you know, reasoning, I was like, yeah, that one caught me by surprise too. So yeah,
I,
really well
Someday
done.
I would love to see your annotated book. I'd love to see your notes as you went along. That would be so fascinating. I would love to see that.
Yeah. I mark them up. I'm not afraid of that anymore. I was
No,
like, yeah,
Don't be
yeah,
afraid of it.
no,
Go
yeah.
don't
with
be
the
I
afraid
book.
of it.
mark them
Do
up.
what
The
you
book
want.
belongs to you now.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's yours.
yeah.
You mark it as you will. I'd love to see what you wrote. I went back over the mayor a lot
Mhm.
in, I hope, deepening her because I didn't want her to be, sort of a cartoonish or flat or one dimensional villain. I
Mhm.
wanted her because, and people say it a lot when they talk about crime fiction, but for the villain is the hero of her story.
Mhm.
I mean, her story, she's the hero.
Mhm.
And in this case, the mayor, was the savior of this town.
Mhm.
She was the one making things happen in the town for real. She was the one saving it, protecting it, bringing it resources, making sure businesses invested in her town, making sure it got all the resources from the state and local authorities. She was out and protecting federal resources. That's how she saw the immigration question. She
Mhm.
did not want to endanger, as she saw it, the possibility of federal aid if she made her town a refuge town.
Mhm.
And so that was what drove. everything that she was doing was either for her personal family, her own family, or the town, which was her family. And I wanted to say that those were actually, that's really good. I mean, those are good impulses that we all should have, actually, in public servants or just in people taking care of their own families.
Right.
Hers got perverted and distorted,
Mm-hmm.
but her impulses came from that drive.
Yeah.
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 That was bigger than herself. So anyway,
Yeah.
I worked a lot on those scenes where she's either referred to or in it,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
to try to get at that. Try
Yeah.
to get at that.
Yeah.
I think you did really well at executing her and making her come alive off of the page.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's very
Yeah.
believable. I like it just like the way you were able to capture the complexity of every single character, even though it were like there were a lot of characters within the book, they all felt like very well thought out. Even
Mm-hmm.
just like Keyshawn, even though like I feel like he was like very much a tertiary character, like very like he was here, but he also wasn't here. And then like he shows up, like not really at her rescue, but just like I'm concerned about you, like you're still
Mm-hmm.
my friend. Like we see that she has all of these people that care and want to like make sure that she is safe and well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like even if they weren't as like at the forefront of the book, like you like really took care of your characters. And I think like we
Yeah.
see novels where like sometimes like the plot is bigger than the characters or like you don't really
Mm-hmm.
care, but it was like I care about all these people because it's like
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
he's not
Yeah.
texting back fast
Yeah.
enough for his chest move. She's not texting back fast enough for the chest move.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
happening? Where did you go? What are you doing? Like I was genuinely like, okay, like tell me, like give me more. Like I want to know. Like I know you and I'm invested in you. And so
Right.
I think you did like just the right amount to keep us moving along through the book until like
Uh,
the
Mm-hmm.
big finale.
that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keyshawn
Yeah.
is another one who comes back. You will see
Okay.
him
Oh, wow.
in this
Yeah.
next book. Some of the
Yeah.
ones that
Okay.
people who are dead, you're not going to see them, but some of the ones who are alive, they will be back. Not all
Unless
of them,
it
but some
unless
of
it
them, and
turns
he's one.
into a ghost mystery, I guess.
Yeah.
No, you know, the closest to a ghost is her father.
Yeah.
If we're going to talk about ghosts, to me, the closest to a ghost is her father Evander,
Mm-hmm.
who's there. And I mean, he turned into a bigger presence than even I thought was going to be. I mean,
Okay.
you know, he almost in a way surprised me. I
Mhm.
knew what the story I wanted to tell, but
Mm-hmm.
having him be the one who was the lost, literally lost in the woods, and
Mm-hmm.
the lost
Mm-hmm.
victim. Again, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to turn some of those tropes. It's always the woman who is the victim, and I said, no, you know, let's turn this around. It could be a
Mm-hmm.
man
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
who's
Mm-hmm.
who's a victim, who's vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
and so he, and then obviously when we learn about his adultery, he becomes an even bigger, in that sense, a bigger
Right.
figure
Right.
Mm.
in the plot, if not in the current. Well, and he, you know, give him his props. He saved that little boy at the end.
Mhm.
He's the
Yeah.
one that ran out of
Yeah.
the crashed
Yeah.
car.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
He had his little, Evander had his little moment of heroism and clarity
Mhm.
Yeah.
before he slipped back
Yeah.
into
Yeah. Yeah.
into the fog, into
Yeah.
the fog that he was going to be. And no, Vandy's a messy character. And my editor said, yeah, she's really messy. I said, well,
Yeah.
yeah, she makes choices that maybe the rest of us wouldn't be making, or
Yeah.
we might hope we wouldn't be making, but we might make. I mean, because life is messy. This is just, you
Yeah.
know.
Mhm.
And you know, that I liked how she was able to, you know, what was it, Daryl up front. So there was that relationship, but she seemed to, you know, to be able to keep other men at Keisha at like an arm's length kind of, and Sam, even with the possibility, of things
Right.
going on. And I think she kind of, considered, or there were moments when she thought about those things. But I'd like that she was able to, I may feel, this way about some men or at some time, but there are other times that I have to, um or not have to, but that she kind of shows and uses her discretion in, saying, I'm going to keep this at bay. I think she did it with Keyshawn kind of at the end, where it's like, nah, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna go there because of her, dealing with Bobby, or
Right.
or even maintaining the relationships they had. So
Right.
I thought it was very, very well character driven, and I thought from murder mysteries a lot of times the characters maybe outside of the main detective tend to fall flat. And I thought in this, each of the characters was really in depth. Even at the hair salon, I thought that was him, kind of giving the names, and I thought that was really well done. So
Another one I had fun with that scene. Just drop that scene. But that was important to me because I'm very obviously I'm very interested in having a full display of diversity, of the diversity of our communities, all our communities. And so it was important to me that I not have, just as it was important not to have one Black character or one Black woman. I wanted to have a multiplicity of Black women who came from all different backgrounds and
right.
class distinctions and educational. I mean, Mavis doesn't have, the bartender doesn't have the educational background that Vandy has, and none of them have the background of the lawyer, her boss. So I wanted to get that. I wanted to get those distinctions and diversity, but I also wanted to have the distinctions in sexual identity, so that I thought it was important to not just have one LGBTQ character, but to have several playing different roles. Her boss is gay, and then I was, to me, that gave me a chance to show the richness of another important community that you had. Well, frankly, the beauty salon keeper, he was sort of stereotypical. I mean, I was playing with that stereotype, but he had a harder edge too, because he saw women in a way that other people didn't see women, and they knew him and trusted him in a way. So he could be a little stereotypically limp-wristed in some ways. But he could be that way because he wasn't the only gay character in the story. By no means.
Right. And he recognized that relationship between, and Vandy was even there. She was outside and had seen it and thought that they were just good friends, but he noticed that there was, something that wasn't quite right, between them. Yeah.
He saw it before she did. Exactly. Exactly. And then you had the key element of the hidden relationship between Hector, the murdered man, and Carlos. And again, I thought that it helped me to have a variety of different experiences, and to say, there's no one way. Even in this tiny town, there's no one way to be Black. There's no one way to be Latino. There's no one way to be gay. There's no one way to be a teenager. There's no one way to be anything. That there are all these people with their beautiful variety going on.
Like, even though it's small.
And even in this day and age, I think the passing part of it was interesting.
Mhm.
that Leo, because he knew, he knew who his father was, but it just it seemed like in this day and age, like he's passing, and they want to keep that a secret. They
Right. He just
so
got too many advantages. I mean,
yeah,
Yeah.
in a
yeah,
different
yeah, yeah.
in a different situation, he might have not just chosen that way.
Mhm.
But he and we don't know because we don't get all the details of when did he exactly discover he
Hmm.
Leo who he
Hmm.
was and who his father was. I mean, I have an idea, but I didn't put that in the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't have all of those details. I'm not sure how much it mattered exactly. But yeah, he went along with his aunt slash mother uh,
Right. Right.
deceit because it
Right.
benefited him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It benefited him.
Was
It
that like
was,
challenging? Did you always know you wanted that piece in the book, like for Leo to be passing?
yes,
You always knew
I
that.
did.
Hmm.
I did.
Hmm.
And so I went back and I wrote that opening scene when
Hmm.
he first meets Vandy. I was trying hard to not say he was an African American,
Hmm.
but to talk about his snub nose and his
Hmm.
fuller lips and his
Oh.
tawny skin, and he has wavy. And I tried to underline that even when he pulled out in that first scene with her, when he pulled
Hmm.
out
Hmm.
the picture of his family,
Hmm.
and Vandy notes that their little adopted boy, their
Hmm.
son, looks like a bit of both of the adoptive parents, except his hair was black like Leo's, but the little boy's hair was stick straight and Leo's was wavy. So I was trying
Oh.
to weave in, I didn't want to say, I wasn't going to say. And
Yeah.
he
Right.
doesn't, I mean, there
Right.
are plenty of white people who look like that too. So, it's not
Right.
like,
Right. Right. Right.
it's not like saying he had to be of
Hmm.
mixed background. And I also wanted to make it clear and try to make it clear that um, Vandy's father was lighter skinned than she was,
Hmm.
and that he had some of and that the mayor, on the other hand, had very dark hair. So I tried to throw some of that stuff in there so that I wanted it to both be a surprise,
Hmm.
but when you thought about it, not so much of not
Mm.
completely
Right.
implausible.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah. When
So
you
I
go
wanted
back
to
to
get
read
both.
it,
It's hard.
when you go back to read
Uh-huh.
it the second time, you can pick up on all
Yeah.
those hidden
Yeah.
There you
nuggets.
go. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I know I promised you only 30 minutes, but it's almost been
Oh wow.
it's almost been a yapper. We're like professional yappers around here.
Hey.
So we thank you. And I have one more question from the few
Mhm.
that I sent over, and then like Jim and Nia, if you have any more that you want to ask before we let her go, we can. But I think my last question would just be, what was the biggest challenge for you with writing this book? Compared to your other books, I know you said that like you are a hybrid author, like so you've done self-publishing, then you do traditional publishing. So like how did that, if it even did, if that was part of the challenge or even just the story itself, like what was the most challenging part for you?
It's interesting. It's a story that had been in my head, as I said before, for a long time. But I wrote it. Certainly, the first drafts of it, I wrote very fast. Perhaps because it had been in my head so long, it came out
Mhm.
really fast. Um, the process was probably easier than it was easier to write the first book than it was to write this second one that's coming. The second one will be coming out next July.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so it's called Death of an Ex. It's coming out next July.
Hmm.
Okay.
And yes, you can guess who the ex is because that took me a while. Her
Hmm.
Vandy's ex is named in the first book, and that took me a while to come up with the name because I said I only mentioned him once in Trouble in Queenstown, but it's got to be a name I can live with because I got to use him a name a lot in the second book, and if I hate his name, then what am I going to do? But anyway, to I it was a different process because when I was doing it for myself as a self-published author, I was my last editor. Um, it all had to come through me. I'm very, I'm pretty picky. I'm very picky.
As you should
But
be.
yeah, as you should be. Um, but I think I therefore gave them a very clean copy when I turned in my draft to the editor. But it was interesting. It was fun putting my mind into interaction with another mind in the way that you have to with an editor from the publishing house, and then having her think about things and ask me things. Well, how come this and how come that? It wasn't hard. It was actually fun. Things that I hadn't thought about. But she was very good. She was good at handling me, and I think I was good at handling her. It's a human process that's very intriguing. I enjoyed it. I didn't find it oppressive. I'm not one of those suffering artists who lost I didn't turn gray. I've had this gray hair for a while. I did not turn gray because I went into traditional publishing. I had fun with the characters, and I really wanted the best for all of them. That for the characters, it concerned me when I wasn't writing and I wasn't finishing. It concerned me that I wasn't getting their stories out. That was something that always was concerning me. They had stories to tell, these characters, and I wanted to. I don't know what my camera is going like. What? I wanted to do them justice, Bandy in particular, but the others as well. I wanted to. They deserved my best.
Yeah,
I felt like it's a funny. Not that I know that they came out of my head, but still, they in my heart. But I wanted the best for them, in all their complexity. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It did.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a special treat. Thank you. This is, just great to be able to talk to you about the book that I think I finished it on Friday. Yeah. I finished Friday.
So it's fresh.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate it.
I try and get it right up to our date so that it is fresh. Yeah.
Well, I love talking to readers. It's fun to hear your reactions because I only know my own head, and so then to hear what other people, what the parts they took in, the parts they're going like, what? Were there any parts? In fact, I have a question for you all. Were there any parts that you just thought like, what is this? What does she want with this part, or why is she going in this direction, or who is this character, and why are we bothering? Was there any part that just struck you as?
I think for me, I think the only part was it was just in the beginning. It was just just like, wait, that escalated so quickly, like just her like hitting hitting him, like walking into the bar. It's like, hold on, how do we get from her talking about like trying to find a man to an altercation? But it was just like, as I said, I don't read a lot of like mystery. Like it's like it was just like, oh, this is like fast paced a little bit. Like it's just like, oh, scene, boom, and then like the mention of her daughter. It was just like, okay, hold on, let me. I gotta start writing down names. I wasn't expecting names so fast. I was just like, okay, hold on, let me get back in and really focus because I know like you said, you were sprinkling in some of those nuggets, and just like Jim, I'm like trying to figure out who did it before you tell me who did it. And it's just like, okay. But that wasn't like a you writing thing. That was me just as a reader. It was just like, okay, like let me plug in the fact that this is a mystery and there are going to be characters, there are going to be pieces, and it was just like catch up brain. So it was really just a me thing.
That's very interesting that you're talking that way because it fits in with a discussion I had with my editor on this book too. She thought, and we went around on this. She thought I had the murder, not in the book you've read, but in the book you will read next summer. She thought I didn't have the murder fast enough. early enough is what I'm trying to say in the book.
Oh, okay.
She
Okay.
wanted it more boom, 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 and
Uh-huh.
I was more like you're saying.
Yeah.
I was more like, let's not creep up, but I mean, because you've got to move it along. But
Yeah.
let's work up. Let's get some character. Let's put them into a couple situations. Let's meet some characters. Let's not go overboard with this. But she said, no, the readers they want to get a dead body up here.
Yeah, I don't
Uh-huh.
think it would have worked. I don't think it would have worked. Like, I think we really needed to get to meet Vandy first
Mm-hmm.
and get to know Queenstown a little bit first before it was just like, okay, here's your bloody bodies. And it's just like, that really would have just like, no, no, no,
Right.
no. So I'm glad
And
like
and,
you went with
and
your instincts and pushed back on that.
and the intrigue was there up front, so why he was there, why he was, so you kept page turning because of that. And one other little thing, and we read our books, but the brevity of the chapters, I thought it was like I could knock out 3 or 4 chapters, and I in little bite-sized chunks. And there have been other books that we've read where there are 5 chapters in the whole book, and you're like, well, yeah.
So
I think
long.
we even talked about that one time. But I appreciated that because I
Okay.
could I could say I'm gonna read a little bit at lunch and a little maybe a chapter in the morning, but I knew that I'm not gonna invest 20 pages deep, and then where was I? So I enjoyed that structure
Yeah.
as well.
And thank you. That's good to know. Did the dividing it up into cases, as I called them? I mean, there were sections, there was
Uh-huh.
Leo's case,
Right.
and then what is going out with this ambulance outside my house? Oh, no, it's not an ambulance. They're picking up the leaves. That's good. That's fine. Some lights flashing. The Leo's case, and then you
Ingrid's
had
case
Sam's case
and
and Ingrid's
Ingrid's case.
case,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
finally Ivy's case. Ivy's
Right.
case was, by the way, another title that I played with. I thought
Ah,
of calling the whole thing Ivy's case,
Okay.
and having the irony, of course, being that she's never alive. I mean,
Mm.
in the story, in
yeah,
Yeah.
we
yeah,
never, she's never
yeah,
alive in the
yeah,
book, except in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
The one report that Vandy goes, and the one week that she follows her around
yeah.
town, going into
Hmm.
Target and Walmart
Right,
or something,
yeah,
but she never speaks,
Mm-hmm.
right,
and Ivy,
right,
that is.
Yeah.
yeah,
And so, in effect, in the last case, it's Vandy speaking for Ivy,
Mm-hmm.
right.
in effect.
Yeah.
But so I thought about that. I mean, it still carries through, but I didn't choose it as the title. Or my editor would have shot that down too. She wanted something that was like, it was either going to be murder or death or trouble or something in the title. Otherwise, she said, no, the readers want to know that this is either a murder, a death, or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually okay. Like, I'm glad that it was trouble in Queenstown because I think, like, just the diner text and just like the look of it, like, that's what really drew me in. And then that it's the start of a series. I think if you would have started out with like Ivy's case, we would have been expecting names for each book after that. And I think
True.
this leaves room for you
Hmm.
to play around and have fun with the titles. Like, although it's not a cozy mystery by any means, it still
Mm-mm.
just allows us to have like allow the title to be like a mystery and like it just has it in there.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Well, you'll be a good editor then, because that's how she put it. That's how
no
she
more
heard it.
job titles. No more.
she, she and I, no, we weren't ever fighting, but
Mhm.
I was always like suggesting this and this, and they were going more and more and more literary and
Yeah.
obscure.
Mhm.
That was my bent. It was more
Yeah.
literary, and she's like, let's just get, it's just trouble in Queenstown. It just is, just this is just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Don't make it into all of this Robert Frost poetry jam thing going on.
I'm glad you had a positive experience with your editor though, because I know
I
there
did.
have been horror stories for some authors. So I'm really happy.
No, I did. I
You're,
really did. I really
are you
did.
working with her, the same well, the same editor for Death of an Ex? That's awesome.
Definitely, definitely. She suggested that title too, because I had all kinds of other titles going on, this and that and the other. And she said,
Yeah.
no, no, no. It sounds too, that sounds too literary, or this one sounds too like a YA young adult. And she
Mhm.
said, just, it's just,
It
that's
is
what
what
it
it
is
is.
the death of the ex.
Yeah.
that's, this is what it is what it is. You're not going to be shocked
When they're still.
about who gets killed. You may be shocked about how and why and what, all the other elements of any murder case, but the the person who's dead is dead, is going to be dead, even though you have a long way to go until there's the dead. There's a dead person. You get further into the story than she wanted, but I think I'm agreeing with you. I think you've got to. I don't think you care. That's
Yeah,
my always my
why do
as a
I
reader.
care if you why not to be insensitive, but it's not like why would I care if this random character died? I don't have a relationship with them. There's no rapport.
Exactly.
Who are you?
That is exactly my point. I think the reader, I'm a reader too, after all. I'm a reader before I'm a writer. And
Mm-hmm.
I just think I have to care.
Mm-hmm.
I have to care about the investigator. Fine. I do have to care.
Mhm.
But I also have to care about this character. At least I don't have to love the character.
Yeah, like their clients. I want to get to know the clients a little
I
bit.
have to
Yeah,
know
yeah.
enough about that character that the death matters.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right.
And it
Hmm.
matters not only to the characters in it, but it matters to me
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
a reader. That to
yeah.
me, that's how I read these mystery stories, I guess. I don't know. Uh, it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think you did amazing kicking off this
Thank
Absolutely.
show. I can't wait until next summer to check out the next book.
I can't wait till you can get to check it out. We'll do this again next fall. We can do this if you want to read
Okay.
Death of an Ex, once you find out who the death is and who the ex is and all that.
Okay.
We could do it again. This was fun. I really enjoyed it. I appreciated your inviting me, and appreciated meeting you all, and wish you well.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
for your
yeah,
time. Honestly,
yeah.
like I know you
Thank
did not
you.
have to. And so it's rare that we get the authors to join us. So I was so glad that you was willing to come and talk with us. And I'm
Well,
so
my pleasure.
yeah. Thank you so much.
All righty.
I'll be in
All
touch.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's
Oh,
all.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
all
Bye.
right. See you next month.
Okay.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good evening.
you too.
You too.